Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Starless Reads. My name is Leah, and I'm so happy you chose to spend some time with me today. Today's video is a fun little PowerPoint presentation that I prepared for you guys, and I am going to talk about my reading year and just my year in general, Spotify Wrapped style. So if you're interested in all of that, keep watching, and yeah, let's let's do it. I'm so excited to show you guys. Okay, here is my presentation. I'm so excited. I spent way too much time making this presentation, honestly, but yeah, okay, exciting. This is my 2025 reading year wrapped. Exciting. Okay, let's start. I made this a couple of days ago, so I don't really remember everything that's on each slide, so it may be a surprise to me as well what I put on these slides. Okay, first things first, we want to begin with some public shaming, and that is the question: did I complete my 2025 reading goals? Very important question. To start off in this presentation, to be honest. And the answer to that is absolutely not. I did not complete all of my 2025 reading goals. But yeah, girl, whatever. Like, reading goals are not the end all be all. Like, who cares if I failed at them? We don't really care. But still, let's explore a bit more. What are these goals that I had set for myself at the beginning of the year that I terribly failed? First goal, I wanted to read 100 books. I have not completed that goal as of right now. I'm filming this at the end of December. Technically, there are still days left in the year for me to complete this goal. Am I going to complete this goal? Logically, no. Because I'm on book 80. I've read 80 books so far. So 80 books out of 100. Missing 20 books. I don't think I'm going to do that in like the 2 weeks left in the year. That's literally impossible. But you know what? Like, dreaming, making goals for yourself, that's fine. I read more than 100 books last year, so I thought that this year would be manageable for me to read 100 books. It wasn't. Turns out it wasn't, and that's fine. I had a lot of fun. I did other stuff with my year. So, yeah, missing 20 books on my reading challenge. Hey, who cares? 80 books? It's still that's a lot of books. Like, when you think about it, maybe too many. Maybe I should get more of a life. Yeah, 80 bucks. I didn't. Okay, so that's one goal failed that I'm not too mad about because honestly, what a fucking nerd. Oh, boo-hoo, you only read 80 books instead of 100. Go fuck yourself. Like, sound like so pretentious. Like, oh no. Next goal. I wanted to clear my physical TBR. That is, I wanted to read like all the books I had on my physical TBR at the beginning of the year. I wanted to go through all of them. Did not do that. No. Well, to be fair, I'm not sure I totally agree with that goal anymore because, like, yes, I like the idea of like fully clearing out the TBR and like reading those books I got years ago and didn't read. But like, I don't think it's a total failure because, well, no, it is a total failure. When you look at the goal as it is, it's kind of a failure. But I am like actively working on that, on reading those books I've been owning for a while. I currently own 18 books I haven't read. And when you compare that to other people's physical own TBR on BookTube, 18 books is really not that much. And I also like having some sort of rotation option going on. I don't really think I would like it to have 0 books on my TBR and to have to go out and buy a new book every time I wanted to read a book. I think having some sort of rotation is good. Keeping it in the 20 to 25 range is good. That number 18 is definitely going to change because Christmas and my birthday are coming up and I did ask for books. So like clearing my physical TBR is not like a goal of mine anymore. I do want to make an active effort to not only read the books I just bought because those are the exciting fun ones. I also want to read the books I bought years ago and didn't get to
because those are important too. Like I bought them for a reason, and I at least want to give them a chance. So I'm doing that in my Unwrapping My TBR video series. Shameless plug for that if you want to watch that. I'm currently filming the next episode in that series, so it's going to be coming out probably at the beginning of the new year, but stay tuned for that. So yeah, another fail. Goal three was to read at least one book in German and one book in Spanish. So I debated whether or not to make this goal public because I did not do it. And it's low-key embarrassing because goal read two books. I did not do that. So the goal was to help me not forget the languages I spent years, hard at work learning. I gave so much of myself to learn these new languages and to practice actively each day. And like, what do I do with this knowledge now? Who knows? Who knows what I do with this knowledge? I did receive a Spanish copy of Don Quixote this year as a prize for being like a good student in Spanish. That book is fucking huge. I'm never gonna read that book. Like they're like, good job, you're being a good student. Let's give you this brick ass book. It's literally a weapon. And I'm never gonna read Don Quixote. Like, congratulations. Here is something you're never gonna do. Like you were a good student for 1 year. Now have this useless piece. No, that's so mean. I was gonna say useless piece of literature. Hey, if Don Quixote is like your favorite book of it all time or something, please convince me to read it. I'm probably being very wrong in my opinions right now, but I'm never gonna read Don Quixote, so like, why would you give me Don Quixote? Anyways, I didn't read any book in Spanish. I didn't read any book in German. Loki, Loki, I have a useless bachelor's degree. Let's move on from that goal. Goal four was to read at least five classics, and I completed that goal. Hey, round of applause. Life is worth living. Yes, exactly. So let's name a few. Like, wow, I did that. So I read a lot of classics this year. To be fair, a lot of those were like required reading for my classes in school, but I still read the book, so it counts. And I'm counting plays as well. I did have a Shakespeare class, so I read a lot of plays. I'm counting the plays. Plays count. So I read a bunch of Shakespeare. I read Macbeth, Twelfth Night. I read Winter's Tale. But also I read bunch of stuff. Julius Caesar. I read Mrs. Dalloway. I read Crime and Punishment. I read the Iliad and the Odyssey. I read bunch of stuff, and most of it was so good. So yeah, pat on my back. I did complete that goal. Good job. Fifth goal was to only buy a new book after finishing three books from my physical TBR. This goal kind of goes hand in hand with the clearing my physical TBR goal. And I did fail at that. I did fail at that. And that goal really had me like making mental math to be like, okay, what if I bought three books right now? And then I was like planning out how I would like make it so that I read nine books for School TBR to make up for buying three books right now. Even though the goal was technically you need to have read the books before buying the book. Anyways, I was like, this is too much for me. I feel like overall, without having like the restriction of a goal, I still did pretty well at with my the buy to read ratio of books this year was pretty good. Like I didn't go overboard buying too many books and then not reading any. I think I was overall good. And yeah, sometimes you go through phases where you buy like five books at once and then you don't buy books for 6 months, and that's normal. You don't have to be like so restrictive about it. At least I don't have to be, and I feel this. Yeah, I failed the goal. I think it was a good idea to be like, okay, this will force me to read old books before I buy new ones. Good intentions, execution was shit, so I did fail. I did fail at that, and that's fine. But moving on to the fun stats, okay? Fun stats. I always love fun stats. The stats are my favorite part of like Spotify Wrapped. This year they had YouTube Wrapped. That was so fun. I love knowing stuff. These were calculated by my brain, okay? I did not use AI like Spotify because fuck AI. So these are calculated by me. The data was served and researched by me, myself, and I. And that means there may be mistakes in the data, and that's fine. Letting you know these might not be correct, and that's okay. First things first. Here is the longest book I read this year. This year, my longest book of the year was the Iliad, and that comes in at 761 pages. To be fair, some of those pages were used for the introduction and the annexes. I think it's still like a pretty big tome, pretty big feat of mine to have read the Iliad, and it's a great fucking book. But that's not news to anyone. Next, we have the shortest book I read this year. It's technically a play, and that is The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. I love Oscar Wilde. Especially, well, I love The Picture of Dorian Gray. That's mostly what it is. If you haven't read The Picture of Dorian Gray and you're like scared of classics, read The Picture of Dorian Gray. It doesn't feel like a classic and it's so good. And after that, you will feel like a superhuman because you're gonna be like, okay, I can actually read classics, and classics can be so fucking good. So yeah, I read The Importance of Being Earnest, which was 89 pages of a play. So it was super short. And I will be honest and say that I read this for class. And I read this towards the end of the semester. And I don't remember much of it. Like, I remember it being very British, like they were eating cucumber sandwiches and stuff like that. And I also remember being absurd. I remember it being gay. I think I wrote a paper on it. I'm sorry. It's just sometimes end of the semester I read a lot of shit. And sometimes my brain has to make place for new material. So, sometimes I think, but sometimes I then forget, and that's okay. And yeah, I think it was fun play. I think I had fun. I honestly don't remember that much. I should maybe like watch an adaptation of the play, maybe. Could be fun. But yeah, all of that to be said, I recommend the picture of Dorian Gray by I recommend the picture of Dorian Gray by the same author. I also recommend, like, if you're interested in like gay authors, to just read on Oscar Wilde's life in general, because I remember more about Oscar Wilde's life during this time than I remember the play, because we talked a lot about the author himself. And yeah, really interesting. But I don't really remember the play. Sorry. Next stat. My most read genre. Okay. Calculated percentages for this slide. So please appreciate. Okay, 40% of the books I read this year were fantasy. That's 32 fantasy books out of 80. That's a pretty big number. To be fair, I did count, like, some books were hard to put into one category, or like they were hard to categorize into genres. Like, if it's like it's set in our world, but there is some fantastical elements of, or some like speculative fiction element to it, or like some books were like, okay, is this horror or is it fantasy? Because some horrors do have like fantastical elements to it, is it a horror, is it a fantasy? So sometimes they were hard to categorize, and I just had to be the one to be like, okay, I'm putting it in fantasy. And maybe other people would disagree, but overall, I read a lot of fantasy. Most read genre. Almost half of what I read this year was fantasy. Hey, maybe I should get more diverse in my reading. But hey, I had fun this year. I had fun reading my fantasy. Then I read 16% classic. And I know some people don't count classics as like a genre because technically you can have classic fantasy, you can have classic romance, you can have, but I did count classic as like separate thing because in my brain it's a separate thing. Even classics are a separate beast. So I did read 16% classics. That's 13 classics this year. A lot of those were for class. I was speedrunning my English minor at the end of my degree, which was in the spring semester of this year. So yeah, that did help a lot. Oh well, yeah, I had fun with my classics. So and then I have literary fiction and nonfiction tied at 10%. And I'm honestly surprised that literary fiction is so low in percentage because I think I read so much more of it last year. But this year it really was not in my lit fic era, and it's okay. Not most, if not all of the nonfiction that I read this year were through audiobooks. I love, love, love listening to nonfiction audiobook. I don't think I remember reading a physical book that was a nonfiction because that feels like school. But if I can have it in my ears while I do a little paint by number, then it doesn't feel like school. It feels like fun. And yeah, I love nonfiction audiobooks. If you're scared of nonfiction and you're like, I'm not that kind of girl, try audiobooks and then come back to me. And then that's not a genre, but I still wanted to put it in there because I feel like it's interesting. 14% of the books I read this year were reread. Hey, that's a lot of reread. This year was really a year of reread, and I think it was in part because I was struggling with my reading. I did not have the best reading year, and I was in a slump like many times. So I feel like rereading books brings such comfort. Well, then I calculated the total amount of pages read. This is the stat that is most likely to be like not accurate. So take this with a chunky grain of salt. That's okay. So I read 28,527 pages. What a fucking nerd. So if you average it out, that's about 357 pages per book, which is a good average, like a good average. I feel like 350 pages is like the average book. Um, and if you average it out, that's about 78 pages read per day. Obviously, that's an average. Some days I didn't read at all, and some days I read 300 pages. So it balances out, but yeah, hey, that's a lot. And then I did some like four, then I did some fun calculations. That's like if I read The Way of Kings 28 and a half times for reference, for reference. That's like if I read this book 28 and a half times. This chunker of a book. And it's like if I read the short story, The Yellow Wallpaper, 1,000 times. Imagine reading The Yellow Wallpaper 1,000 times. Then you would actually become insane. You would go out and want to kill a man. And this is not counting the pages from the couple of books I DNF this year. I did DNF a good amount of books, I would say 5 to 6 to 7, something like that. So this is not counting the pages I read in those books because I don't count that. So maybe add like 200 pages to that little counter there. But yeah, overall, these are the calculations for this year. Moving on. Okay, moving on to opinions. Okay, so these are my opinions. Before that, that was like facts and stuff. Now going into opinion. Sometimes I may be wrong, and that's fine. So if you're about to be like, I'm Chile, like it's fine. We can have different opinions. These are mine. And sometimes my opinions are wrong, and that's okay. That's okay. Hey, it's okay. Opinion. Let's start with on a positive note. Some new favorite authors of 2025. These are new to me authors, so like I hadn't read from them before, and I first read from them this year, and I like fell in love or something. Those are authors that really like did something, some damage to my brain. First one is C.S. Packet. Hey, C.S. Packet? Absolutely. From them, I read the Captive Prince trilogy and the Dark Rise, like the first two books of the Dark Rise trilogy. The third one is not out yet, but I basically binge read their entire catalog of reading material at the beginning of the year, and I was having such a fun time. Captive Prince trilogy is a very dark romantasy, and it's gay. Like, I think pretty much everything that they write is gay, so like I was just on the hunt for fantasy, maybe like trying to find a romantasy that I wouldn't like hate. And I was like, okay, maybe if it's gay, I would actually enjoy that. And I did enjoy the Captive Prince trilogy so much. And then Dark Rise is also like a queer fantasy situation, but it's YA. So Captive Prince, not YA, and it has some like adult content in it. And then Dark Rise is YA, and Dark Rise is so fucking fun. It is quite dark as well as the title might suggest, but it's honestly so fun, and I'm excited for the third book, which is going to come out eventually. Yeah, so if you're looking for like a fun series, a fun queer fantasy series, read Dark Rise. And then Captive Prince is quite rough. Especially the first book. It involves some like not fun stuff. So before getting into Captive Prince, I would encourage everyone to check out the trigger warnings and then dip their toes in the water, maybe like read a couple of first pages and see if it's okay with you, because that book can be tough. But then the trilogy, like the second and third book, are freaking amazing. So yeah. Sis Packet, new favorite author. I'm gonna keep checking out what they release next. Silvia Moreno Garcia. So from them, I read Mexican Gothic and The Bewitching. So I can't believe I had Mexican Gothic for so long on my physical TBR. I never read it. But guess what? It's so freaking good. It's so good. Yeah, I love the way she writes. I am thinking of checking out, what is it? There's beautiful in the title, but I can't remember for the life of me what the name of the book is. But I that's the next book by her I'm thinking of checking out. Yeah, so fun. Actually, most of these books are not fun. Both of them are like horror gothic things. I know people didn't like Bewitching because of some of the content in there, and I understand, but I feel like it's quite clearly like a horror, and it's meant to be like sick and twisted. So like I don't know. Like I guess yes, check trigger warnings if you are, but like I feel like with horrors it's different, because I go into a horror expecting to be like disgusted, triggered, horrified. That's the goal. So if I read The Bewitching, which is like, okay, here's a horror, and then I'm horrified by things happening on the page, I'm not gonna be like, oh, Sylvia Moreno Garcia is like promoting incest. I'm going to be like, obviously this is meant to be a horror and it's meant to be disgusting, which is why, like, you know what I mean? But I can also understand people that were uncomfortable by the whole incest happening in that book, because you're meant to be uncomfortable, but also like whatever. Anyways, I fuck with her and I fuck with her writing, and I enjoyed both of these books so much. So I'm gonna keep reading. She has a lot of books out, so it's a win for me. I am going to check out other books by her soon enough. And then I have honorable mentions. These authors are not yet solidified as like new favorite authors, because I only read one book from them, but they could become new favorite authors if I keep reading, keep like checking out their books, and like keep loving what I find. So honorable mentions: H.G. Perry. I read The Scholar in the Last Fairy Door. That was so fucking good. That's how you do dark academia. Exactly. Especially like fantasy dark academia. The Scholar in the Last Fairy Door is where it's at. It's so, so good. And then Cat Dunn, I read Hungerstone by them. It's a sapphic vampire horror story. It's so good. So good. It's like romantic and horror and gothic, and it's so good. And I actually have another book by the same author. I own another book by Kat Dunn, which is Thornhead, I think. I think it's called Thornhedge. I'm not sure, but it's a fantasy sapphic story. Once again, I think kind of dark. So yeah, okay. Okay, biggest disappointments of 2025. This I feel like this slide is going to be my biggest hear me outs. Okay, because I know that those books are beloved by many, which is why I went into them with high expectations. So I'm not saying that these books are the worst books of the year. I'm saying I went into them with the biggest expectation, and which is why I felt the biggest disappointments. So I'm not saying these books are horrible. I'm saying they were not what I was expecting, and I felt sad about that. So with that said, okay, whoa, I forgot I put that on the slide. Okay, actual first disappointment of 2025, not myself. First biggest disappointment of 2025 was Dungeon Crawler Coral. I had trouble with that book. The humor is very bro humor. Some of it was funny, some of it was not landing with me at all. The tone was weird. Like, was it supposed to be funny or a horrifying situation? Like, I felt it's like a weird tone. Like, I know this book and this book series in general works for so many people. I don't think it works for me, mostly because of the tone. And also the humor is sometimes not clicking, also doesn't. But the tone is so weird. It's like if Hunger Games had so much humor thrown in it and like was not taking it so seriously. And it's like, okay, but like you're supposed to be on commentary on our society. Like, what the fuck? Like, why are we making dick jokes? Like, it's not clicking. So the tone for me not did not work, and I was so disappointed because I spent $40 on the hardback only for it to not be good. Like, I gonna hate myself for that. Like, that's money directly going into the trash. Anyways, I gifted that. I donated that book, so I hope the person who found it at the thrift store was happy with the book. It was not. Next is the book that wouldn't burn. If you saw my latest unwrapping my TBR episode, you saw me being disappointed. I had high hopes for that book. Like, I was in the mood for a high fantasy. It had a library in it, and I was like so interested. And then it just didn't land. Like, it didn't. I was so bored, so bored. Um, so it's a DNF. I don't know if it counts as a biggest disappointment because it's a DNF. I didn't finish the book, but like I'm excited about this one. It just was so boring. And then the third one that about this by R.F. Kuang. And let me explain. Like I said, this book being on this list does not mean that I think it's the worst book ever. What I mean is this was so disappointing because my expectations for this book were fucking sky high. And I did make a vlog on Catharsis, and I took it off my channel because after like even after like maybe a day of this video being posted, I was like, I don't feel like these are my opinions anymore. And I was like so conflicted. So some parts of the book I really, really loved and enjoyed and clicked with, and other parts I was like, this was kind of badly done. Like, I don't know. I feel like maybe sometimes I expect too much of my favorite authors because I know what they can do. I love R.F. Kuang. I love the Puppy War trilogy. I love Babel. So I was expecting something else. And then I got Calabasas, and that's okay. It's just the tone was not what I was expecting. It was way like goofier than I expected. The characters felt a bit flat for me. Like a lot of things about the book were disappointing. And I was like, okay, could have been better. But I think this book is making it onto my list. This book is only on the list of biggest disappointment because I had such high hopes for it and because I love the author so much. If I didn't love R.F. Kuang that much, I think I would feel fine about this book. But because I love R.F. Kuang and her works so much, I was like, kind of disappointing to be honest. I feel like she could have done something so much better with the same concept. Like the concept is so fun and so good and like, but yeah. Anyways, moving on. On the flip side of biggest disappointment, I did have some pretty big surprises this year, books that I didn't expect to love as much as I did. And that's always fun. First fun surprise I had this year was all of the Rachel Gillig I read. So I read One Dark Window, I read Two Twisted Crowns, and then I read The Night and the Moth. And all three of those romanticities were so fun. And I was like, okay, what the hell? Because Rachel Gillig writes heterosexual romanticy. And some of the books, like some aspects of her works, I will say, are quite silly, but they are so fun. So fun. And I was not expecting to have that much fun with what she wrote. Um, but turns out how she writes is exactly for me. I loved all three of those books by her. I'm gonna keep reading some more by her. Like if I keep being interested with the concepts of the books she writes, I'm gonna keep reading them. Like those books are just pure like fun silliness, and she does write like good yearning for heterosexual relationships. Like I am not complaining about how like she writes romance. I think it's fine, and I am having fun with her works. Like just thinking back on like the reading experience of reading those books, it's so fun. So yeah, if she does come out with new work when the sequel to The Night and the Moth comes out, I think next year, I'm definitely gonna pick it up and see because I'm having fun with her book. So that was a big surprise because I didn't think those books would be for me. But yeah. Then, big surprise, Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is not a surprise because this was originally okay. So I went through a roller coaster of emotions with this book because first I was like, okay, it's a new Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid, so I'm definitely gonna love this. So I'm gonna pick it up. So I picked it up, and then I actually looked at the book, and the subtitle on the cover was a love story. And then I was like, oh, is this really going to be for me? Because I'm usually not one for romances. Turns out the romance was between women, so it was for me. After all, it really was. And everything turned out fine. It was such a big surprise because not only was it like it was a really romantic book and I loved it so much. So I need to stop being so high on my horse and being like I'm so like much better than romance because I'm not. I'm really not. I only need a bit of your name, and if there's women, then I'm sold. So I need to stop being surprised that I love romance in books because I do. I do. I just need to find the correct romances that mesh with my brain chemistry, you know? And another big surprise was Everything is Tuberculosis. I was not expecting to love Everything is Tuberculosis so much. It's a nonfiction book about a disease written by John Rain. And I didn't know anything about tuberculosis. I pretty much picked it up because I had some Spotify hours for audiobooks and I heard that this one was a really good like nonfiction. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna check it out. And turns out it's so well written, so like so informative. It talks about John Green's life and how and it talks about tuberculosis as like a whole. It talks about history and about right now, and it's so good. And I would really recommend everyone to check it out. It's a really short audiobook. You have Spotify hours of audiobook. So go check it out. It's so informative, really well done. And it kind of made me emotional as well because I didn't realize how much this disease has affected the way we live right now in 2025. And it's such a well done book. So I was like so surprised by that because I was expecting to like enjoy it, but not like enjoy it to that degree. Like it's pretty rare for me to enjoy a nonfiction to like such a big amount, but I did. I did. It was so good. Also, another nonfiction I enjoyed so much that I also listened to on audiobook is Down the Drain by Julia Fox. I was not expecting to love this book so much because I was like, okay, I don't know Julia Fox like that. I just heard that this was a good audiobook. It was so good. So this is a memoir about Julia Fox's life. And before that book, I didn't know anything about Julia Fox except that she was the girl that made the actually did it myself. Yeah. Interview. So that was all I knew about her. I knew she made some pretty iconic memes on the internet, and that was it. But this audiobook is so fucking crazy. Like she has had an insane life, a crazy life. And this audiobook feels like your cool aunt telling you about the crazy wild life she has lived and all of the lessons that she learned from that. And the amount of tea in this book is absolutely crazy. If you love tea, yeah, it's just about her life, her living in New York City, and some parts of it are pretty rough. So I will say that, like, maybe check trigger warnings because there is like obviously a lot of things happening in her life that was crazy and also like destructive to her and to people around her. But if you love just learning about people's crazy lives, read Down the Drain. It's really good. I really recommend it. And the audiobook is her narrating it. So it's really like her telling her, it's really like if it was her telling you her life and being like, yeah, wasn't it crazy when that happened? And like freaking blew my mind. So big of a surprise. So yeah, it's good. Check it out. Check it out. Worst books of 2025. We've had, okay, my opinion on worst book of the year is that nothing is that serious. And by that, I mean that if I feel like the book I'm reading is the worst book of the year, I'm not gonna finish the book. I just DNF and move on. So I don't have a list of worst books. I have a list of disappointments, like I said, but worst books, I don't have those because I didn't finish those books. I read 20 pages and moved on. Like, it's really not that serious. And I encourage everyone to reflect. You have, hey, this was the worst books of the year. This was my worst book of the year. I encourage you to reflect. Why are you torturing yourself? Why are you doing that to yourself? You know, you don't have to finish reading it. If it's for class, then I'm sorry. But if it's for your own enjoyment, stop reading the book. It's not that deep. So yeah, nothing is ever that serious. You can just stop reading books you're reading. Hey, pro tip: if you're not enjoying what you're reading, stop. So yeah, I don't have a worse book because I don't even remember. I DNF book like it's my full-time job. Okay, if I'm not enjoying DNFing. Yeah. Moving on to best books of 2025. Those are these are very subjective. Like I said, this is the opinions portion of the video. These are the best books according to me. Also, when I say best book of 2025, it's the best book I read in 2025. I don't mean the best books that were released in 2025. I just mean I read these books in that year, and those were the best according to me. I don't believe in ranking stuff for the same reasons I don't give star ratings to books. I just don't because I feel like opinions are so fluid and change. So I'm not gonna rank these books in like order of like the bestest and the least best and stuff. It's just in a random order presenting to you favorite book highlights of the year, no particular order. Yes. First things first, we have The Tainted Cup and a Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the Shadow of the Leviathan series. It's a fantasy series. There are two books out so far. I think it's supposed to be a trilogy. So we're waiting on the third book. This book series is so fun. I read both of these books this year and I enjoyed it so much. It is a blend of fantasy and mystery whodunit kind of vibe. So imagine Sherlock Holmes but set in a fantasy setting. And this fantasy setting is so fun, so well done. They live in this place close to the water ocean where there are these giant beast leviathans living in the water that sometimes attack and the whole like and their whole society and the plants in this fantasy world are very like mushroomy, very it's giving swamp, and I love that. And the magic is so fun. And we have those two very dynamic characters as main character, Din and Anna. Din is like the Watson to Anna's Sherlock. Anna is this eccentric woman, and she has such good powers of deduction, and Din is her assistant. And together they are tasked to solve some mysteries, usually murders, and it's so well done. Incredible work. I also like how in the series it's usually starts with like a quote unquote simple murder, and it usually develops in something so much bigger than the original crime. Usually something to do with corruption, government, society at large. So well done. I recommend. Okay, next favorite of the year is Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. Betty is a contemporary fiction. Actually, it's a historical fiction, it's a literary fiction, and it's a coming of age story about this young girl named Betty, and she grows up in the United States in the 1950s, 1960s. She is half indigenous, half white, and she lives in like rural US. I don't remember which state to be honest, but imagine rural farmlands kind of place. It's absolutely devastating as a story. This book made me cry so much. You follow this young girl, and I feel like this book shows all the aspects of growing up as a girl so well. Like the good things and the horrible things. Obviously, I didn't relate to everything in this book because we didn't have the same kind of like life at all, and I had way much privilege than Betty did. But like you can see in this book that Tiffany McDaniel inspired herself from true events, and this coming of age is so heartbreaking. And like this book was honestly a revelation. It was so good. If you like books that made you cry, read this book. So much about childhood, finding yourself, a lot about siblings dynamic because Betty grows up with many siblings. A lot on parental dynamic, on racism, on just like childhood psychology, how your brain processes stuff when you're so young and how that shapes you for the rest of your life. Yeah, just thinking about this book makes me feel devastated. So if you want to feel that too, check it out. It's great. Yeah, it's absolutely a very destructive book. I recommend it to everyone. No, not to everyone, actually. If you're not well mentally, this book might not be good for you. So, hey, proceed with caution. Next book, hey, check it out. It's another devastating read. The Sword of Kagan by Emma Wong. This is a fantasy book. It's a high fantasy book. Where do I even start with this? This is a fantasy standalone. It's Asian inspired, but it's so tough to describe this book. The reason why I enjoy it so much is because it somehow is so fantasy and like traditional fantasy, but also defies the genre a lot. With fantasy, or at least I feel like I get used to a very specific plot structure where, there's the rising action, and then usually at the end of the book, there's some big conflict, usually some kind of war or, that kind of thing. In this book, the war happens like halfway through, and the falling out from that is the conclusion, is like the second half of the book. And that's like a weird, quote unquote, weird plot construction for a fantasy book. It's not usual. And yet, um, this book talks about humanity. Like it deals with relationships, relationship between parents and child, between lovers, between wife and husbands. It talks about just societal roles. So it discusses like misogyny and how misogyny can fluctuate between different cultures. It deals with grief, it deals with power. It's so, so good. If you're a fantasy fan, like if you love a lot of fantasy, I would really encourage you to check The Sword of Caligan out because it's fantasy in a very different way. And it's so good for that reason. For that exact reason, it's so good, so well done. So yeah, yeah, I really encourage everyone who loves fantasy to check it out. Another devastating book, like made me cry once again. If book wants to be one of my favorite of the year again, I guess it has to make me cry. Yeah, Sword of Caliban. Crazy. Crazy book. And last but not least on my list of favorite books of the year is a book that is so old. It feels kind of weird to be like, oh, this is my favorite book of 2025. This book has been around for so long that it's low-key crazy that in modern day it has affected me that much. But that is The Odyssey by Homer, translated by Emily Wilson. The Odyssey is like one of the oldest books ever. Like just one of the oldest story period that we still have around to this day. And just reading those words on the page and thinking back that this was a story getting told around campfires hundreds of years ago is crazy. Like when you really think about it, it's like, oh my God, I'm experiencing the same tale that ancient Greek people were experiencing. Like that's crazy. And the story is still good. It's still like so valuable to us as a society right now. I said this in the reading blog where I read the Odyssey, which was my first unwrapping my TBR, I believe. But if you like fantasy, I really recommend you read the Odyssey. Because you can see with this book that where so many like conventions of the genre started, in this old ass tale. Yeah, I feel like I have nothing more to say on this book because what can I say more on the Odyssey that hasn't been said yet? Yeah. Hey, also there's a movie, Odyssey movie coming out soon. I think in 2026. So, hey, this would be actually a perfect time for you to like read this book if you are at all interested before the movie comes out. So then you can be the annoying person that's like, actually, that's not historically accurate. Yeah, crazy, crazy book when you think about it. Also, the translation, Emily Wilson's translation, so good, so good. Hey, I trust her with translations now. I'm gonna be keeping an eye out for everything she translates because she does such a good job of translating, especially like epic poems. That's crazy. Like that's so difficult, such a difficult feat to do, and she does it like masterfully. So yeah, great. Great, great. Moving on. Moving on. Okay. Oh my God, a new year. Isn't it crazy that it's 2026 already? Like, hey, so 2026. Oh my God. Hi. Um, I have made some plans for 2026. Those are like my loose plans for the year for my reading, but also for this channel and for life in general. So I have a reading goal of 75 books. And I think that's a nice number. And if I see halfway through the year that I'm doing so good on my reading goal and I'm so in like so far ahead of it, I might bump it up to 100. But for now, I think 75 as a reading goal is pretty great. I want to do more fun stuff on YouTube. I can't believe I started a YouTube channel this year. It's honestly kind of like crazy because I've been thinking of doing this channel for so long and now I'm actively doing it and it's so yeah, I want to continue making fun stuff on YouTube. I want to explore new ideas for this channel. I am having a lot of fun with this. So yay, fun stuff on YouTube coming up. I want to continue reading my TBR. I'm gonna continue doing unwrapping my TBR because that's what's making my brain happy at the moment. But we'll see. Maybe later in the year I'll do other challenges to read my TBR. Just I want to continue that because it's fun. I want to explore new hobbies even more. This year I picked up a lot of new hobbies and like it's so fun and it's always fun to learn new stuff. So I want to explore doing crochet. I want to explore new ways of editing. I've been playing so much of Stardew Valley and I'm having so much fun with Stardew Valley. And last but definitely not least, this is kind of the biggest goal on this list. I want to finish my studies and I want to find a big girl job in 2026. And I really hope I do. And I just only all we have to do now is to like keep working, keep going forward, and keep having fun. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I also want to say thank you to anyone who subscribed. It's honestly kind of crazy to me that people are subscribing to my channel. So if you are subscribed, like, thank you so much. I'm gonna keep trying to produce fun content for y'all. And yeah, hopefully we'll be seeing fun new stuff in the new year. But just thank you so much for your support. As I start this fun little side project in my life, just having people comment on the videos and having people saying that watching is like a fun thing for them really puts a smile on my face and a little bit of lightness in my days. So I really appreciate it. And I wanted to say thank you so much for watching and commenting and liking. I just appreciate whatever you do. So, yeah, that's all for today. And I'll see you soon, I guess. Okay, bye.